Hello students, class 11th, political science, our constitution, second video. Students, हम लोग पहले देख चुके हैं that our constitution is a compact document. It's a compact document which contains the highest laws of the country. And when we say that it comprises of number of articles, then the articles of the constitution, they specify how the country will be constituted, what norms and standards it will follow, what are the different functions that it will perform, and also what are the fundamental values it will try to strengthen, and the aspirations of the people, how the constitution will meet those aspirations. Students, remember that the Indian constitution, it was needed for many reasons. Why do we need this constitution? We need it for many reasons. Let us look at the reasons. When we have a constitution, we have coordination. Okay, let me choose a bright yellow color. We need a constitution for coordination between different communities that live in the country. So this coordination comes when we have basic set of rules. कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन है तो रूल्स हैं तो कोऑर्डिनेशन है. It's like you may be from any community, you may be from any class, you may be an old man or a young man, you may be a male or a female. Constitution provides basic rules so that all people understand that they are governed by the same rules. So there is always a coordination between them. The second need is that Constitution specifies who will take decisions in the country, who has the power to make decisions. Like in India, the parliament takes decisions. Okay, a bill is presented, there is discussion, there is debate, the bill is passed, and a law is made. So it is the constitution which decides that who will make laws. Third reason why we need a constitution is because constitution, it sets limits on the power of government. Okay, when India was under the British rule, we were governed by the laws of the British. Like, we had no freedom of expression, we did not have freedom of association. If you remember Jallianwala Bagh incidents, Rowlatt Act was imposed. People were arrested. No appeal, no vakil, no dalil. But now when we have our own constitution, it set limits on the power of government. What government can impose on citizens? गवर्नमेंट को हम खुली छूट नहीं दे सकते, वो हमारे राइट्स हमसे नहीं ले सकते, except if there is an emergency. Like आजकल you have national lockdown because of the COVID-19 disease. उस केस में the central government has imposed restrictions on movement of people, so there is social distancing. Fourth, why we need a constitution is because constitution is a document which fulfills the aspirations and hopes of the people. आप सब जानते हैं भारत की स्वतंत्रता संग्राम की कहानी The people of this country came together to fight for freedom. Gandhiji led from the front because we made a promise to the people that once the India gets freedom, the people of India will have a country which will give them all rights, which will give them equality, justice, where there will be democracy, there will be freedom, there would be no restriction. So it is the constitution which helps to fulfill the aspirations and the goals of a society. It is the constitution which helps to create conditions for a just society. Okay, we all talk of Ram Rajya. Hmm? So we need a constitution for these reasons, and one very important reason, that it is the constitution which gives a fundamental identity to a person. We get three kinds of identity: political, moral, and national identity. So if we have to quickly see why do we need a constitution, there are five reasons. One, constitution helps to bring coordination between communities by providing set of rules. Then it is constitution which specifies about who will have the power to make decisions. Number three, it sets limits on the power of the government. Number four, it helps to fulfill the aspirations and the goals of a society and create conditions for a just society. And number five, it is constitution which gives fundamental identity to a person. Right, students? You must note these down. Let's go ahead. कि संविधान तो है भारत का, हमें इन कारणों के लिए जरूरी था, इसलिए हमने अपना संविधान बनाया. But we here go to a very important topic, that is authority of a constitution. What gives our constitution the strength? How is the constitution of a country the most powerful law, the supreme law which runs the country? So, for a constitution to be a supreme law, it must have the authority. So, the Indian constitution gets its authority from these points. Number one, how it came into existence. What were the substantive provisions? How was its design a balanced one? How was it made? What was the composition of the Constituent Assembly? What was the principle of deliberation? What procedures were followed? And how this constitution it inherited the values of the national movement? And what are the institutional arrangements made in our constitution? And the 10th point is how very important provisions have been adopted from constitutions of different nations. Okay, students, let's study them briefly. Students, how effective is a constitution? We will be able to answer this question. And how just is this constitution? We will also be able to answer this question. Please remember that we say that constitution is a compact document with number of articles. When we talk of a constitution, we are referring to this document. Okay? But can we just say that constitution is only a document, or it is a set of documents, or is it something more? Can we say that it is only a document or set of documents that seeks to perform the five main functions जिसकी बात हमने ऊपर की? Students, I must tell you that many constitutions around the world, they are merely on paper, and and the major question is, how effective is the constitution? What makes it effective? What ensures that the constitution really impacts the lives of people? So here we are going to answer this question. What makes the constitution effective? भारत का संविधान क्यों इतना effective है? Under this, we will be studying 10 points. So let's go to those 10 points. Number one, mode of promulgation. It means how the constitution came into being. Who crafted this constitution and how much authority did they have? Students, in many countries, constitution have been crafted by military leaders or unpopular leaders. Leaders who did not have the ability to carry the people with them. Okay? However, most successful constitutions are like the Indian Constitution, Constitution of South Africa, the Constitution of United States, because they came into being after popular national movements. Please remember, although Indian Constitution was created between 1946 and 1949, but it has its roots in the long history of the nationalist movement for freedom. And remember that because of this, our constitution has the ability to take all the sections of Indian society together. Students, it was Indian constitution which took different sections of the Indian society together. In other words, our constitution is a strong constitution because it was drawn by the people. Who were the people who designed it? One, who enjoyed lot of public credibility. Public were with them. Number two, they were the ones who had the capacity to negotiate and command respect. And number three, they were such people who could convince people that the constitution was something for the welfare of all, for the larger benefit of the country. So students, the Indian constitution is a very, very strong constitution because we just saw that how it came into existence. इसको आगे समझाने के लिए let us take an example from Nepal. Students, since 1948, Nepal has had 5 constitutions. Please see. There was a constitution which came in 48, abolished. 51, abolished. 59, again abolished. 1962, again abolished. And then in 1990, please remember what led to this complicated nature of the Constitution of Nepal. Here, The constitutions were granted by the king of Nepal. Okay, चाहे वो 1948 में था, 1951 में था, 59, 62, 1990, all these were granted by king of Nepal. It was only in 1990 constitution which introduced a multi-party competition, although the final powers were with the king. Please remember, 1990 में नेपाल में मल्टी पार्टी सिस्टम आया, सो डेमोक्रेसी आया, जिसके वजह से 1990 का कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन came to be a strong constitution. We should know that for many years Nepal was faced with militancy. There were militant political agitation, and these were all against the role of the king in the constitution of Nepal. There were groups which wanted to abolish monarchy and establish republican form of government like we have in India, the elected government. And others believed that we may have limited monarchy, like we have in England. But what happened in Nepal? The king was not ready to give up powers. Okay, 1990 में हमने देखा कि मल्टी पार्टी इलेक्शंस की वजह से there was a constitution, but that could not last very long. And in 2002, the monarch, he took all the powers. Therefore, what happened? Many political parties demanded another new constituent assembly. We want a new constituent assembly which will frame the new constitution. Okay? And the Communist Party of Nepal, which is called the Maoist Party, it led the struggle. And finally, under the pressure, the king had to accept the demands and he had to install government acceptable to all parties. Okay? What this government did? It stripped the king of all powers. Okay? And in 2008, Nepal emerged as a democratic republic after fully abolishing the monarchy. And finally, what happened? Nepal got a new constitution in 2015. आपको याद होगा हमारे प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी नेपाल गए थे और मुबारकबाद दिया उन्होंने to the elected government for having a republic kind of government with a new democratic constitution. Students, ये मैंने को एग्जांपल देना आपके लिए इसलिए जरूरी था that any constitution which is able to preserve the freedom and equality of all its members, that is the constitution which is more likely to succeed. Okay, our constitution, it preserves, in other words, it gives to everyone freedom, justice, equality, and that is why our constitution is successful as compared to many countries in the world. The second important point which answers our question that how is Indian constitution an effective constitution lies in the fact that it has a substantive provisions in it. You see, the framework of Indian constitution is such that it pursues basic justice. Okay, it is based on the principle of justice, principle of freedom, and principle of equality of all its members. Okay, please remember, In India, we do not have any preferential treatment for power groups. In India, same rights, same privileges are for the poor as they are for the rich. We have we have something which is called a principle of non-allegiance to specific groups. All members are to be treated same. Okay, so now you know why this Indian constitution is so strong, so effective, because the Indian constitution, it preserves, you must remember this word, that the Indian constitution, it preserves the freedom, one, equality of all its members, and ensures justice, right? What is the third point? Students, Indian constitution has a balanced institutional design. What is this balanced institutional design? See, please remember that a balanced institutional design is one in which the power is fragmented intelligently. Okay, all the power does not lie with one uh, institution. You know, no single institution acquires monopoly of power. Please remember, there is a balance when there is no monopoly of power. Like, for example, in India, we have the horizontal fragmented power. Like, we have the legislature, the first organ of the government. We have the executive. We also have the judiciary. And we also have independent statutory bodies like the Election Commission. What does it mean? Because there is a balanced institutional design, therefore, no one institution can subvert the constitution. Okay? Subvert means to amend it for one's own gain. This is not possible when you have such a brilliant, balanced design. Okay, students? No single institution can subvert, or we can say destabilize or bring down the Indian constitution, because there is a horizontal division of power. Plus, here I would like to add, along with it, there is a system of what you call intelligent system of checks and balances. अगर हमारे लेजिस्लेचर से गलती होती है तो जुडिशरी इज देयर टू चेक इट. If executive, for example the prime minister and his cabinet, they are taking some decisions, then again the other members in the parliament can stop the cabinet. Similarly, judiciary is there as an independent institution to keep an eye both on the legislature and the executive. And likewise, legislature also make laws regarding how the the Supreme Court judges would be uh, appointed, etc. So there is a system of checks and balances in the Indian constitution. Student, there is one more element to intelligent institutional design, that is, our constitution strikes a right balance between some values, norms, and procedures, as authoritative. You know, there are values which cannot be compromised. There are standards and procedures which should be followed. And at the same time, Indian Constitution allows flexibility. So when societies are changing, needs are changing, circumstances are changing, you know, our constitution allows the governments to take some decisions with enough flexibility, right? So two things we learned, that the Indian constitution has an intelligent institutional design. One, the power is fragmented so that no institution can subvert or destabilize or disrupt or make our constitution weak. Second is there is a right balance between certain values and norms which are authoritative and 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 with a provision of flexibility to adapt to needs and circumstances that keep on changing. Right, students? What is the fourth important dimension which makes our constitution effective? Students, the fourth important point in support is how this Indian constitution was made. How was it made? You see, that gives our constitution strength. Please remember, number one, it was not made by some monarch, but made by the Constituent Assembly. Okay? And that time, there was no Pakistan. We were an undivided India. Number two, the members of Constituent Assembly, okay, they were formed by the members of Provincial Legislative Assembly. So the government that we had in the provinces under the Government of India Act 1935, they helped in the formation of the Constituent Assembly. Number three, the Constituent Assembly had a very representative composition. How was this representative? Like, for example, there were members from different provinces, princely states, and group of states. Okay. Now, we had Muslims, Sikhs, and other general population. You would be pleased to know that the members of each community in the provinces, they elected their own representatives. Own representatives किसके लिए? For the Constituent Assembly. That means Constituent Assembly had representation of Muslim members, Sikh members, and members from other general population. In the princely states, again, the members which came to be the part of the Constituent Assembly, they were not arbitrarily selected. They were picked up after lot of consultation. Right, students? तो हमारा इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन क्यों इफेक्टिव है, क्यों जस्ट है, क्यों वो एक स्ट्रॉन्ग है? Because of this fourth reason, that it was made by the Constituent Assembly, and the Constituent Assembly was representative. There were members from all the provinces, all the princely states, and these members were like I said, they were elected by their own representatives and elected through proper consultation. Students, the Indian Constitution had a beautiful composition, and this composition, it made our constitution strong, effective, and acceptable to the country. What were the main features? Number one, after partition, we still had 299 members in the Constituent Assembly. Okay? तो जिस बॉडी ने हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन बनाया वो एक राजा नहीं था. There were one less than 300 members who came from different provinces and princely states. Remember that we got freedom in 1947. We were not in a hurry कि हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन 2 महीने में बन जाए. We took a lot of time. You will see under next heading, deliberations. We took a lot of time. Many sessions were held. Many meetings were held. Different groups were made to frame the articles of the Constitution. Remember that Constitution finally, when it was drafted, we adopted in 1949, and only 2 months later it came into force, that is on January 26, 1950. Okay. Remember that the Constituent Assembly, although it was not elected by the people of the country, like we know, it was not elected by universal suffrage, but it was a representative body because the elected members further elected the members for the Constituent Assembly, and we had 28 members from the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes and other religious representations as well. Okay, and people generally talk about it. The Congress, which was then the single largest party, it dominated. It was indeed a diverse party. So the composition of Constituent Assembly, I would like to highlight this. The composition of the Constituent Assembly also makes the Indian Constitution authoritative. Okay, students? Authoritative means commanding, effective, strong. Students, very important point in support is that our constitution is based on the principle of deliberation. You see, deliberation refers to a lot of thinking, lot of reflection, discussion, consultation, debate. You know, please remember that uh, the procedures that we adopted, to frame the constitution, they were such that each member deliberated, discussed, held discussions, keeping the interest of the whole nation in mind. उस वक्त disagreements हुए होंगे members के बीच में, but please remember that there were disagreements, but these disagreements cannot be traced to protecting their own personal interests. Okay, so all the provisions of the constitutions were passed only after there were proper deliberations, discussions, thinking, debate. Okay, Every matter was seriously discussed and debated. Okay, all the members of the Constituent Assembly, they engaged in public reason. They gave lot on emphasis on discussion, on reason, on arguments. So क्या 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 सीखा हमने कि Indian Constitution is not something which was picked and placed. Whatever is contained in our Constitution, it has come out after lot of deliberation. That means after lot of reasons, thinking, reflection, discussion, debate, arguments. Okay? And remember, all these deliberations took place with the interest of whole of India in mind, and not uh, some member's personal interest. Okay, students. The other reason which makes Indian Constitution strong and justified is the procedure. Let's learn about it. Students, the procedures which were adopted in the making of the Constitution made our Constitution very, very strong. Here I would like to emphasize on 5 points. Number one, the Constituent Assembly had 8 major committees. There were committees for different subjects. Each committee drafted particular provisions. These provisions were subjected to debate by the entire assembly. Attempt was made to reach the consensus. Okay? Some provisions were put to vote. Point number 7. The Constituent Assembly met for 166 days, spread over almost 3 years. And not to miss, the sessions of debate, discussions, arguments, they were kept open to the press and they were kept open to public. I had once read that Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, Sardar Patel, B.R. Ambedkar, Dr. Rajendra Prasad, many more names. They were the head of these committees. They were the chairman. The heads were called the chairman of the committees of uh, Constituent Assembly. और आपको जानकर हैरानी होगी कि for example, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar was a critic of Mahatma Gandhi. Although Mahatma Gandhi was never a part of the Constituent Assembly, Nehru and Ambedkar did not agree. Patel and Nehru did not agree. In some cases, Dr. Rajendra Prasad and Ambedkar did not agree. So, चाहे इनके चेयरमैन में agreement नहीं था, but is look at these 10 points. The procedures that were used in building the provisions of the Indian Constitution, these provisions were very, very healthy. These procedures were very, very healthy. Like I said, 8 committees. एक कमेटी ने सारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन नहीं बनाया, तो सारे सब्जेक्ट्स को हमने 8 मेजर कमिटीज में डिवाइड कर दिया. There were committees on different subjects. Each committee drafted particular provision of the Constitution. और उसने बना दिया तो फाइनल नहीं हुआ. The provisions were subjected to debate by the entire assembly. Remember, assembly had 299 members. They were debated by the members of the entire assembly. Okay? And attempt was made to reach consensus ताकि सभी ग्रुप्स की, इंडियन ग्रुप्स की इंटरेस्ट को फुलफिल करें. there were provisions which were subjected to vote, और कुछ provisions पर voting हुई. So please see, the procedures were very, very democratic. They were very, very transparent. They were very, very time consuming. Nothing was done in a hurry. And the sessions were open to press and public. Yes? So feel proud in Indian Constitution, and this makes the Indian Constitution a very, very strong and strong document and the strongest law of the land. Hello students, the ninth point which supports the question that how is the Indian Constitution a effective document is that our Constitution has its inheritance in the national movement for independence. हम सब जानते हैं that we were a slave country, and for more than 200 years the people of India, they fought for their rights. Let us look at this point. Students, please remember that Constituent Assembly could not have functioned. It could not have functioned. Kab? If there was no background consensus. So, when we were designing the Constitution, there was a background story. Okay? There were certain principles. These principles, they came out during the long struggle for freedom. And here I must tell you that the Constituent Assembly was in the words of Pandit Nehru, it was giving a concrete shape and form to the principles that we inherited from the nationalist movement. Okay? Remember that under the British rule, there was no equality, there was no justice, there was no liberty, there was no freedom. Okay? The British government, they did not think about the welfare of the farmers. They did not think about the welfare of the workers, the peasants, the Indian artisans. है ना? आपने पढ़ा है class 8th में that the British rule was exploitative. The British rule exploited us economically, politically, culturally. So, हम क्या पढ़ रहे हैं कि जो हमारा कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन डिजाइन हो रहा था, ओके, it was being designed on some principles. These principles we had inherited from the long struggle of the nationalist movement. Okay, students? We must understand that Pandit Nehru in 1946, he moved a resolution. He moved a resolution before the Constituent Assembly started to work. He moved a resolution which defined the aim of the assembly. Okay, where did we get the aim of the Constituent Assembly? Constituent Assembly ने करना क्या था? तो जो resolution पंडित नेहरू ने लाया और उसको पढ़ा, that resolution, it highlighted, what did it highlight? It highlighted the aspirations and the values behind the Constitution. Okay? It was based on this resolution of 1946 that our Constitution, it gave institutional expression to the fundamental commitments. What were these fundamental commitments? Commitment to equality, liberty, democracy, sovereignty, and a cosmopolitan identity. Please remember, our constitution is not merely it's not merely a maze of rules and procedures. But in 1946, he had spelt out the aims. So it was a moral commitment to establish such a government that would fulfill the many promises that were made during the nationalist movement for independence. I want you to look at those principles. We have it in our textbook. Here, students, the the resolution that was moved by Pandit Nehru in 1946, it had some main points. Like number one, India is a sovereign, independent republic. It will be a union of erstwhile, then the British Indian territories, Indian states, and other parts who are willing to be part of the union. Territories which will form the union shall be autonomous. They will exercise all powers and functions of the government. All powers and authorities shall come from the people. All people of the country will be guaranteed. Huh? They will be guaranteed social, economic, and political justice, equality of status and opportunity, equality before law, and fundamental freedom of speech, expression, belief. Students, the principles uh, provided adequate safeguard security to the minorities, backward and tribal areas, depressed and other backward classes. And and there was another principle that the territorial integrity of the Republic of India, you know, uh, shall be maintained according to the justice and the law of civilized nations. And finally, the Indian land, would make full and willing contribution to the promotion of world peace and welfare of mankind. तो आपने क्या देखा कि हमारे कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में जो भी हमने प्रोविजंस लाए हैं, ओके, they were based on the principles, the principles which which emerged out of the long struggle for independence. Students, finally, we can say that the Indian Constitution is a very, very strong and a very, very effective document, the supreme law, because it took good care of the institutional arrangements. Here, I would like to highlight number one, the Constitution, has it has defined the government, the Indian government, as democratic and committed to the welfare of the people. Okay. Now, any government to be democratic and committed to the welfare of people, you know, there is a need of right balance of power among various institutions. We know in India, the three main organs of the government are the executive, the legislature, and judiciary. Okay. Now, the Indian Constitution adopted a parliamentary form of government with a federal arrangement. So, a parliamentary form of government with a federal arrangement, it ensured distribution of government powers uh, horizontally between legislature and the executive, and also vertically. between the states and the central government. So, so our constitution is a very strong constitution because the way we have uh, adopted and given to ourselves a parliamentary form of government with a federal arrangement. So you have the government at the state level. Now you even have the government at the village level. So you have the government at the state level, you have the government at the central level, and you have the horizontal sharing of powers between the three organs, the three main institutions: executive, legislature, and judiciary. And finally, students, our constitution is a very, very effective, very, very strong document because the Constitutional Assembly borrowed a number of provisions from several countries. क्या क्या हमने लिया अलग अलग कंट्रीज के कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन से? Let us see, and this will finally end our presentation. Students, we have borrowed mainly from 5 different countries. Okay, we have borrowed from the British Constitution, from the American Constitution, the Constitution of Canada, the French Constitution, and the Constitution of Ireland. Some very beautiful provisions that we have borrowed are as under, like, for example, in elections, we have borrowed the principles of first past the post. That means you have to have the one who gets more number of votes gets elected. We have borrowed the parliamentary form of government, the rule of law, and the speaker and his role in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. We have also borrowed the procedures of lawmaking from the British Constitution. Similarly, students, from the American Constitution, we have borrowed the Charter of Fundamental Rights. We have borrowed the principle of independence of judiciary and also the power of judicial review. So people, you know how they go from the lower court to a district court, from a district court to a session court, then to a high court. From high court, people can file appeal and they can go to the Supreme Court. Students, we've borrowed a quasi-federal form of government. We will study this later from the Canadian Constitution. We've also borrowed the concept of residual powers from the Canadian Constitution. From the French Constitution, we have borrowed the principles of liberty, equality, and fraternity. And not to miss the beautiful, there's a complete chapter in the Constitution, Directive Principles of State Policy. We have borrowed this from the Irish Constitution. How interesting, students, that that these provisions which we have borrowed from the constitution of 5 different great countries, it gives strength to Indian constitution, है ना? जो अच्छे अच्छे provisions ब्रिटिश कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के, अमेरिकन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के, कनेडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के, फ्रेंच और आयरिश कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन के हैं, हमने उनको बोरो किया और उन प्रोविजंस को हमने अडॉप्ट किया है अपने इंडियन कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन में. And this takes us back, it takes us back to the main topic, that is authority of a constitution. How the Indian constitution is is a commanding constitution, or how it has the authority, what makes it a powerful constitution. And we have covered these points one by one. We have seen how it came into being. We have also seen what were the substantive provisions, how the design is so balanced, how it was made, how the Constituent Assembly was composed. We have studied about the principle of deliberations, debate, discussions. We've studied about the procedures which were followed. We've also seen that Constitution has inherited the fundamental principles which emerged from the nationalist movement for freedom. And we have seen what institutional arrangement has been made, like a parliamentary form of government and a federal distribution of powers. And finally, we just saw that our constitution becomes a strong and effective constitution because we have adopted some very, very good provisions from the constitution of five different countries. Just to recall, constitution of Britain, United States, Canada, France, and Ireland. Students, I hope you have found this presentation very important and meaningful. This is very, very important chapter, and I want that you must do well in your first unit exams, where you will have questions. In fact, two, three questions which come from this chapter, like what is a constitution, why we need this constitution, and what makes the Indian constitution strong. And here you're going to talk about these 10 points. Thank you very much.